are up. Hello, 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 and welcome to Shared Space with Quita in Chat. And today we have a repeat offender, Ash, who's been here before. So we all family. How y'all doing, Tribe? Tribe?
Yeah.
Yo, Trav, what up? How? I'm good. I'm really excited this week. So I am Chaplain Lovelace, aka Chat. I volunteer chaplain for Baltimore City through the police department for the community. I'm going to do a bunch of other stuff, including host this lovely show, this lovely space with the lovely Laquita Chancey. Um, I'm excited for this week. We have the Pensieve Parade on Saturday, and like I don't know. Words can't describe. You just got to show up and figure it out, man. But it's going to be a vibe. We're gonna be ignorant as possible within the boundaries of the law, and it's all love. So y'all come out 11 to 5, Pensy Ave. Got like 10 marching bands. We got one or two black motorcycle clubs, including the Peacekeepers. Um, they're actually called Peacekeepers. Love those guys. Um, let's see what else we got. You guys remember Shamrock from The Wire? That's our MC, Mr. Burton.
Okay.
He's going to be MC. Donnie's going to be Grand Marshal. So the marching bands, if y'all are watching or listening, y'all better show out because it's a competition. It's not just we're not just there to love on the people, but we need you to show out for the Grand Marshal Donald Glover. And thank you, Officer Lee, for organizing it with Officer Anderson. So Officer Lee recently retired. So that's all I got. And tomorrow night at Burdick Park, free jazz concert from 6 to 8 at Burdick Park in Hamilton.
And what time does that start? 6?
6 o'clock. Yep, it's a free jam session. It's a jazz concert, but it's like a jam session. Like last time, there was like everybody in the audience kept getting up and hopping on the piano or the saxophone or the drums, and I'm like, what's going on? This is fantastic. So yeah.
Busy, busy, busy. Yeah, this week, let me think. So walk with the doc every Sunday, all the Sundays. We're always out there. Sunday at Lake Montebello, 9 a.m. We do a wellness walk. We do community connections, do some mindfulness and stretching and working out. Just come out in community with us on Sunday, all the Sundays, except for like Mother's Day, Father's Day. We give folks, space to spend with time with family and such. But yeah, this week, like all busy with school stuff, hanging out with North Bend, hanging out with Dent Education. So just working with the kiddos this week for me. And I don't think I ever introduced myself. So by the way, I am Laquita Chancey, the founder and director of Baltimore Homes, and we build micro shelters and tiny homes for folks who are unhoused. And that's actually kind of how I met Ash. We met, I think, initially at a tool bank function because, I have a micro shelter on display there, but I rent tools there whenever I'm engaging with volunteers. So, Ash, welcome back to the show as a repeat offender. You have the audacity to show up and support us over and over again. So, we thank you for that. So, go ahead and introduce yourself, my love.
Yeah. So I'm Ashley Esposito. I live in Violetville in Southwest Baltimore. But yeah, I'm love the Tool Bank. The Tool Bank folks are awesome. And so yeah, I actually got nominated for the Weaver Award through like the Tool Bank, which was like crazy.
Excellent. So, well, before we get off the show, we got to put the information out. People vote for you this time around.
Actually, the applications have just been extended, so people can apply for the Weaver Award. There's 20 this year. Last year there was 10.
No, we don't need people to apply. We need them to vote for you.
Oh no, I already got one. I got one last year. Yeah,
okay.
So now I'm like passing the torch. Like we're trying to find the next 20 folks that are already doing that type of work in the community and sometimes go overlooked or whatever. Or they're shy like me because I didn't apply. Like I was nominated, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so used to being like behind the scenes and stuff. But yeah, I'm here. Yeah, and I actually took another leap of faith recently and decided to run for Baltimore City's first school board election.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what we're on here to talk about. So let's get into it, Ash. Because like you said, a lot of people don't even know that this is even happening right now. So, can you give us some background on? It sounds like this is a new board, correct, or a new council, maybe. So,
Yes.
give us the yeah.
Yeah, so last summer, yeah, I applied for one of the vacancies because I was already working. I was initially working with like education initiatives on a college level, and part of the reason why I was doing that is because I was like a non-traditional student, but I'm also somebody that has learning differences. So I wanted to make sure that things that were working for me were kind of like amplified, and so I was a big part on like mental health committees and accessibility. There's some accessibility work that I did. And so when I graduated in last May, I graduated with a bachelor's in software development. Yay! I started getting involved with our local school system because I just learned a lot, and I wanted to be able me as a kid, like I was not diagnosed with the learning disabilities that I have. So on paper, like I actually scored really well, but when it came to grades and stuff, I graduated with a cumulative 1.4 GPA because I'm like dyslexic and I have ADHD and a couple other things. So I realized that like coding, I was actually an amazing coder. I taught myself, and that's how I ended up doing software development. So I really wanted to connect with like local schools and help with some of the mental health stuff because I'm also a former foster care youth. So I understand a bunch of different like tough dynamics, and it's such a small population. So sometimes both groups get overlooked. So I started getting involved, and then that brought me to apply for one of the vacancies. And so everybody that exists on the board now is appointed. And then by legislation, there's two elected seats that will join the board.
Excellent.
That
Um,
is, so you just told me a wealth of things that I didn't know before. So one, had no idea that you were foster youth. Like one of my like really good girlfriends, it's she's not the reason that I advocate for foster youth, but I just understand how complicated that is and where we fall short for a lot of our children. Like not only in education, you know
yes,
what I'm saying? So
yes.
just like in having
Especially Ashley, I know you understand this. Obviously, one of our biggest things that we do that we actually should do together. We just don't. I got a whole arena or network of people who do take care of aged out kids
Yeah.
because that is the whole. That's one of the biggest holes in the program.
And let me tell you,
yeah,
that is another area that I want to look at because I wasn't in foster care my whole life. I was in there for probably like a little over 2 years. But I did exit care at 18 and I went into an independent living program till I was 21. And the program that they they actually took like a block of homes and like rehab them, and they became our houses that we shared together, like the kids that exited the system. And then we also had a neighborhood. It's called West End Neighborhood House. It was right down the street, but in collaboration with them, they taught us like skills, like how to register, apply for college, like all the life skills, like normal stuff, like turning on your electric. But
right.
we didn't have people to.
Anyone to walk you through
I've
that.
never heard of these
Absolutely.
guys.
Oh,
So
it's
what?
in Delaware. Yeah, it's not
Okay,
here.
no, okay. I was going to say because we deal with a lot in Baltimore, and I'm just surprised I haven't heard of that. But
And
that's
there's
okay. We can
in
send kids to
Wilmington.
Delaware.
And Wilmington, Delaware is actually kind of similar demographic and a lot of the same issues. It's just much smaller, so per capita, probably like copy paste, like same issues,
Right.
but it's just
Yeah.
super small. So, some of these programs that I was in, I was able to see like how it was like full like wraparound services.
Right, right, and understand how it addresses needs in a more holistic way. I feel like that's often a gap for aged out foster youth, and then people don't have empathy for those now adults who were not taught those life skills, and we're like, well, why don't you know how to blah blah blah? Like you're an adult, but you were never. We learn by watching. You know what I mean? Like people don't realize how we adapt and watch people do certain things. But if you're moving from house to house to house, you never have the chance to sit down and understand that, oh, these bills come every single month. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like simple things just that everybody seems to take for granted. And not that all the kids that come out of foster care need some sort of, you know what I mean, additional help, but in most cases they do, and it's something that we can't ignore. So I really love your perspective. And then also knowing that in Delaware they're buying houses. So were you all renting those houses? Did you have to pay?
Yeah.
How did that work? Did it
So the
didn't
houses,
job like
yeah, I believe they were like they may have been like vacant or like dilapidated-ish homes,
mm,
but like I believe the funding was probably like from the hospital and like a couple other like key partners. So they rehabbed the homes. Each of us paid $200 a month, and part of like like when we lived there, we had to like attend the courses, we had to work, we had to like check in with our caseworker. So there was like things that we had to do. Like we couldn't like drink there. Like of course we're all underage, but I mean
right,
there was some,
right. But
you
it
But
know,
no,
was
there,
still
but
cool.
there was an accountability factor. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's great that you had that program to kind of catch you.
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate in Maryland and Baltimore, Maryland, and not just Baltimore, but Baltimore. So one of my really good friends, Ryan, experienced aging out, and because I knew who, for whatever reason, he had disability benefits that he was that were coming his way when he turned 18. What
Mhm.
happened was he aged out. There was about $30,000 to $50,000 of benefits coming to him, and the state of Maryland took that from him to compensate them for his foster care. And he went to the assembly, General Assembly, to petition and say, like, this is unacceptable, this and that. And Ryan's no longer with us. He struggled a lot of trauma. He struggled with addiction. And so I won't give his last name, but this young brother, like, he got screwed by the state. And so I use that as an example to say that I'm so glad that Delaware is conscious of the problem, because Maryland actually doesn't just not help; they're
Hmm.
screwing these kids over.
But they're
For
also not, I will say disclaimer, they're also not perfect because there are a lot, like my issue with the foster care system in general is that it's quick to take your kids away, but not quick to address the
Hmm,
root cause of like the reasons why kids are taken away. Right. So I do think rather than the state, like we shouldn't have this many like wards of the state. Like that's not an ideal
Right,
model at all, especially because, you know, I lived in a house where the people that I was living with tried to commit suicide when we were there. You know, so like it was wild. Like I had so many
wow.
placements within that short amount of time. But what I would like to see is the same kind of holistic approach, that an idea that I have for schools, which is, you know, rather than it just being a hub for students or having this whole child approach, have a whole family approach. Because
right,
we also have to identify the fact that parents are also dealing with generational stuff. So the wraparound services should be given to the parents, and it doesn't work that way. It's wraparound services for the kids, and then it makes the parent like look just like crappy rather than a
right.
restorative process.
No, that's so insightful, because, like, when Quita says "Welcome to the tribe," we know that it takes a tribe, and I'm quoting David McNair, a guy I used to work with, and he said that it takes a tribe to raise a family. People say it takes a tribe to raise a child, but it takes a child or a tribe to raise a family. And just to your point, what you're just you're speaking on.
Yeah, I mean, and to 2 points, right? So my thing is, even as a, a a regular person, I don't think we give our parents enough sympathy and realize that they're like growing up as they're raising us. You know what I mean? And we don't really recognize that. And I say that knowing how old I am now, and knowing at my mother, when my mother was my age, she had 3 kids, right? Like I was in high school, and I'm now as an adult, I'm like, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Like I'm still trying to figure this thing out. Like, and my mother had 3 kids at this age. Like, how did she ever do that? Like mothers are so amazing. So to your point, like we have to address those gaps that these households have for one reason or another. And the best place to do that is school. So what are some of the suggestions, or what are some of the ways that you're suggesting that your campaign will help to make that more holistic.
Yeah, first things first is like meeting people where they are. So, I mean, I think the one strength that I bring that doesn't exist on the board is community engagement. Like, I mean, I've worked with some city agencies to really push them outside of the box because every agency and every, like, even the school system, they tend to reach out to folks that are already plugged in, like people that they already have easily, community associations, churches, stuff like that. And that is such a flawed model because if you're talking about working class folks, especially folks that are like poorer, like they don't have time for that stuff. So really like meeting them where they're at and giving them something in their hands, like not relying on emails and things like that, I think is what I would bring. And I would be the type of school board member that's very accessible. Like I'm gonna almost be campaigning after the campaign if I get elected because I literally want to get in every single neighborhood, and I am like strongly focused on the people that are most negatively impacted because I don't care about like all the positive things happening, like those are great, but if we have schools that are being permanently closed or if we have alternative schools that are being told that their enrollment numbers aren't up to par, but the classroom sizes need to stay small, like that's a whole problem, and we can't apply those metrics to everything. So that is what I'm going to go in there and like try and shake that up. And then also, just being somebody with learning differences, being in the room. I think sometimes people talk about us and don't really fully understand
Mm.
or aren't making things accessible to us because I don't want kids just to like get by or get accommodated. I want them to be able to find things that work for the way that their brain works. Like I said, like I'm a coder and I can code probably better than I can read. So, there are ways to do that, but you have to have like an individualized like lesson plan. Like this whole standardized testing is like not in line with like, various like learning styles. And I did get an endorsement by the Baltimore Teachers Union, which was super impactful because I'm not an educator. I'm a community
Right.
member. That's the
But
perspective.
the educators aren't getting the job done.
I think it depends. Like, if you think about whether or not they're being supported, there's a lot of things top down that I see where a
Hmm.
lot of pressure is put on the teachers to get the things done, be a superhero with limited resources, with schools that are falling apart. Even some of the 21st century schools are already in trouble.
And
In
that's what,
disrepair.
to your point, that's why they need people like you. Like I volunteer in the schools. I've been everywhere from Cherry Hill to Greektown volunteering. And they need people like you. And I'll say myself, but people in authority or in position of authority like you, because the educators went to school to be educators. And I get that. And I appreciate that. And I respect that. They shouldn't have to do all, get all the resources, do all those things. Right. So they need people like us who can make something out of nothing, who can bring resources to the table for them and so they can just say to you, Ashley, you can say to them, what do you need? And
Mhm.
then you turn around and then tell me and Quita what they need, and we got you, right? Like that's a great plan. I'm down for it. I love it.
Yeah, and also board members, like some people don't even know what board members do. They are the biggest part of the budget. So when we decide, like our budget should align with our values. So
Absolutely.
doing that, if it's not aligning with the values that I just told y'all, like we are like hurting kids. Every year that there's a graduating class that they are not prepared, we're complicit. That's how I feel.
And then, like you were talking about the schools closing, because that's a conversation I love having. Because I started volunteering at New Era in Cherry Hill just to find out they're closing, right? And what I discovered was, on top of just like there's so much politics behind closing that school. So there's legislation and policy that says if you don't use 60% of the property, you have to close the school. Well, they were using the facilities. Then they took half the student population and moved them to another school so that they could close down the school, right? And then on top of that, they moved the half the population to another school to justify building a 21st century school that wasn't needed, rather than just repairing the infrastructure already in place, right? Like I'll give you a good example, like because we're all pretty young here in the city, and I mean I'm 44 and I feel young as I don't know what. And when I talk to these OGs and I'm like, hey, yo, because it's a Baltimore thing, like, where'd you go to school, right? I don't know half the schools these dudes went to because they're closed.
Yep.
So there's no investment in a legacy, right? Like, of course, like, Poly City ain't going nowhere. So, of course, that's the big, oh, you went to Poly, you went to City, you went to Western. But besides that, in our neighborhoods that aren't as prosperous or whatever,
Mhm.
they just shut it down and they treat it like it's nothing. And so the neighborhood and community treats it like it's nothing. Kids treat school like it's nothing. You can't empower a PTA to stand up for their school because they're not engaged. Because who cares? They're going to close the school anyway. No one's paying attention. It's all
Mhm.
It's a lot
Politics
to
as
do,
usual.
man. And there's so much that, especially, I encourage people like volunteer once a month. Just put your finger on the pulse. Put your eyes in the school, man. It's
It's
bad.
the
And then,
key.
and
Yeah.
Southeast, where there's undocumented families, it complicates it even more, right? Because you have a Title I school who's getting a lot of funding, but now that most of their population's undocumented, their numbers don't count towards the Title I requirements, right? So now you just lost all your funding for a 95% immigrated population that doesn't, that like at least 50% is not documented, but we're trying to educate them, and we just lost all our resources because they don't count as people on paper. So
And
there's so,
it's so
there's so
yeah,
much going on, man.
and it's so stupid too because like I also don't believe that like this burden of like meeting these like random metrics or whatever should be put on the principals. Like ideally, like even because I helped go through the interview process with our current principal at Violet Vale Elementary, and some of the like the questions that we were asking were around just her ability to like change the culture and train cross train teachers and like plans that she has, things like that. But when she like got in there and like I've heard this from like not she hasn't said this, a disclaimer, but like other principals, the other things that they have where there's pressure from like North Ave, that North Ave I feel like should be taken care of. Like if you're talking about
Yeah,
marketing and all foolishness, that is so like that it should not be put on the teachers or the
Right.
teacher principal. And
Parks and Recs operates the same way.
yeah, and also it's like this metric is so out of whack because they increased their enrollment numbers, and now we have kindergarten classes that are like packed. So was it worth it? Like, because is the funding really getting there in time to accommodate, and are you making sure that there's enough teachers to catch the influx of kids? Like I don't think I'm a data analyst, so that's another
Right.
thing.
That's what I was about to say, Ash. Like the math is never going to math.
Yeah,
Okay. So when you look at it, the issue is you need the numbers to justify the budget.
yeah.
But if that's the case,
But
it's
the
after
data
the
could be,
fact that we're justifying the budget. Those kids have moved on. That
Mhm.
budget needs to be bigger. And no one is taking into account that these schools need to be maintained. They just keep building stuff as if it's going to maintain itself.
mhm,
Mostly
and
everything in Maryland or Baltimore, for that matter, has a flat roof. You have to repair those or at least get them inspected like every 3 to 5 years. Is anybody at least
no,
doing that? Never mind the fact that the
mhm,
kids got lead. So, to your point, these learning disabilities and being able to understand the lesson plan, being able to communicate with folks, being able to manage your emotions in an intelligent kind of way. Like all of these things go out the window when we're talking about metal inside of someone's body. So, holistic, like it needs to be even more than just no more standardized testing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in addition to that, like we've already known that that's failed. Standardized testing was because most people were working in warehouses and you would have to do repetitive work. That's not really the case anymore. Like, so why are we even doing them anymore? Like, what is the justification? Like, so in addition to getting rid of that kind of stuff, Ash, what else can we do to either support you or what else are you going to introduce during your campaign?
Um, like right now I'm just like doing like a typical like door knocking and just getting out and like talking to folks because I do have a full platform that I've like cultivated from community conversations. And I'll be the first to say like I am not an education expert, but what I am is like a community expert. And a lot of times the solutions to complex problems are in the community, but people have to ask the question. And
Just
if
gotta
people
have
aren't
a conversation.
Yeah,
Equal
and if
out
people
in the
aren't ready
community.
to receive it, like, because that's what I see a lot in the school system is that, when they're given a negative critique, they'll handle that one squeaky wheel, but they won't handle the root cause that caused that
The
problem.
overarching
Yeah.
problems, right? Right. And
And
okay, so and two things that you mentioned that I wanted to kind of piggyback on is one, the digital inequity throughout Baltimore and how in so many cases, like we really failed those poor kids during the time that they were supposed to be virtually learning. Like the way that the internet system works, the way that some of these machines were working, like the way that Ash, you would understand that if these kids weren't doing work from home before and now they have 3 and 4 computers on their network, chances are their computer is moving super slow. They're not able to watch videos or participate in class the way that they want to. Never mind the fact that it also makes their parents politically vulnerable. Like,
mhm,
you're on here, doing a show, but if folks don't have internet access, they're not gonna be seeing any of this. So to your
yeah.
point, you have to door knock. You have to have
Yeah.
those face-to-face
And
conversations.
and I prefer it, like, I mean, even in my neighborhood and stuff, like, I mean, there is like I am a comms person, like a comms heavy person, but because I mean, a lot of people do have cell phones and like surprisingly, even some people that are unplugged or plugged in that way. But yeah, like a lot of them like don't get the type of outreach to like have like honest conversations because like I said before, not only like are there schools that are 21st century schools that need repair that was
Mhm.
maybe not put in the contract to ensure the quality of work, but also when it came to virtual learning, there were some schools who got tons of laptops and other schools that didn't get enough.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and so that in like inequity, like in just facilitating things, like a lot of people said, "Oh, virtual learning didn't work," but it's also dependent on where you went to school,
Right.
um, whether or not there was enough effort put into it, and whether or not they fully understood virtual learning. Because what I didn't see is, you know, other schools that had been doing virtual learning prior to the pandemic, they really
Mhm.
should have worked with those schools to find out how they were doing it and serving everybody. Because I'm somebody that was like only able to go to school because of the virtual learning environment. Because I use
Right.
like accessibility software, and so
Right.
I wouldn't be a college graduate right now without online learning.
So then walk me through that. What are some of the tools that you use that people might not be hip to, that maybe their child is having some sort of issue in school and maybe one of these tools could potentially help them?
Yeah, so I am dyslexic, so when it comes to that, like a lot of times, like you get an extra tutor to like help you like push to like a better reading level. But at the end of the day, like our brains just work different. Like you're not going to be able to like fully reprogram us. And for me, like I think I was at like a ninth grade reading level when I was diagnosed.
Okay.
Um, and which isn't terrible. Like I'm
No,
not,
that's
yeah,
good enough.
It's
Yeah.
better than most kids who graduate from Baltimore City. I think 50% of them are considered illiterate, but don't
yeah.
quote me on
Oh,
that.
But college level, like me wanting to go to college, like I was told, like you probably can't go to college.
Right.
And I tried to go to college. I actually failed out of 4 colleges because I just couldn't do it. Like,
You were
so for
like,
me,
yeah, you were like, I'm going to do it because I know I want to go to college,
that's
but
Can I,
what
your
can
brain
I
is
pause?
like,
I want to pause the conversation, man, because I'm just like smiling inside so big because um your story is so like congruent to mine. Like I've tried to go to college like 5 times. It wasn't for me in that season. Um, I read, I think, on like at a sixth grade level is my reading comprehension. Yet I was smart enough to be a nuclear mechanical engineer on submarines for the U.S. Navy, right? So I can read RPM or OPM, understand how the nuclear power plant works, but it would take me 2 weeks to read through Quita's like autobiography of the Smaltimore journey, right? Like 200 pages. It would take me weeks.
yeah,
It's just, and so I get that. And I'm just like really feeling connected and grateful to know that like I'm not the only one out here who is struggles with the normal institutionalized model, but we
yep,
still find success in in being in our differences, right? And in our diversity. We can still find success. We have to embrace it. Because I wasn't medicated. I don't even know what my problem is, man. But it was like if I try to do things the way I think I'm supposed to, or people tell me to, it's never quite right, right? But then if
Mhm.
you can find a way to make it make sense for you, and within the boundaries of like social graces and the law, and not breaking the law, or anything crazy or absurd, like we need that, right? And you just got to figure it out. So I don't, not really articulating well, except for the fact that I'm glad I'm not the only one. I'm glad you're sharing, because this is the word for me this week. Like I don't really go to church every week like I should. My church is at the lake with my sister and my other sisters. But like that was a word for me today, and it's really encouraging. So I wanted to stop and thank you, and share that with you, because
Right, because
I
dope,
get
she's
it.
a whole computer scientist, right?
Yeah,
So
Right.
and that is the point. Like, I don't want
tell
him
us, no, but tell us what has helped you. So
Okay, so first of all, like my school made a decision to take all the paper books and convert them to a PDF format. And so my husband is a former special education paraeducator, and he's actually the one that figured out that I was dyslexic. So he used to help me read stuff. He would look over things for me, because he knew, like, I would always like joke and be like, I just don't read that well or whatever. And I
right.
mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've had like medical forms sent back, like, you did not fill this out right. So yeah, like this was like a school. I'm like, I'm gonna do it this time. And so I was reading out loud, and he's like, it does not say that. And I was like arguing with him. And so, like,
He's
that's how
like,
I,
no, I'm looking at it right now.
and
Wow.
he's like, "Are you dyslexic?" Because he worked with special education kids, and he's like, "Have you ever been tested or anything like that?" And I was like, "No." So I went and got tested. Sure enough, I had that ADHD and some like auditory ish, I think, like sort of. I don't know. It's like
Mhm.
dyslexia. I don't fully understand it. But yeah, so when we Googled it, we were like looking like what resources would help. And literally I downloaded text to voice software, and I literally started crying because that was the first time that I really ugh, like felt like I was reading at the same speed as other people.
Hmm.
So,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
I could remember what I had read, which was like, and it changed. I like before that, people don't really know this like about me, probably like people that, but I did have to take classes over and over and over again. Because what I would do
Yeah.
is I would register for a course, and
Mhm.
then I would withdraw just so I could get the reading material. So I was always trying to read like semesters ahead because it took
Right.
me so long.
Mhm.
And so after I had the reading software, I never had to do that. I never had to retake a class. I had a 3 point something GPA, over a 3.5 GPA,
Wow.
just from some stinking software. And it was liberating, but it was also like frustrating because I was like, imagine where I would be if I had this as a kid.
So what I don't understand is why isn't that something that a freaking standardized test hadn't revealed in when you were in the first or second grade?
Because
Like,
we're
I
we're
feel like
smart enough. We're smart enough to pass the test, right, Ashley?
Yep. I
We're
actually
smart enough
tested
to pass the
really
test.
high.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
I'm the
actually,
same way. Yeah, like on
but
SATs.
no. So smart enough to pass the test, yes, but a specific dyslexia test, like
they
children
don't,
that
they, so
Teachers have to
what,
pay attention. Parents have to pay
yeah,
attention. That's the only
there's
way you
two
catch it.
there's two things. So they did mention to my family, like when me and my sister were little, that we were having trouble. And because there is still a stigma, like especially in like the Black community, I feel like when it comes to being diagnosed, like we have like fear about overdiagnosing and things like that. So I think when they brought it up, there's pushback automatically because
they're
it
like,
makes
ain't
you,
nothing wrong with my baby. Get out of
yeah,
here with that.
yeah. So it was like, no, they're smart. They're just not applying themselves. That was the
Right.
message. And
That's
so,
what it is.
yeah.
You
And so
might be lazy.
after a couple times, they're not going to keep pushing the issue. So
Hmm.
Okay.
because really parents do have a say in whether or not they believe it or,
It's
you
so
know,
Right.
enlightening, right? Because that's what they'll say. Like, you have so much potential. You're just not trying. You're lazy.
yes,
Mhm.
yep. And so that's how I got missed being like diagnosed. And no shade to my family or anything like they didn't
No, not
know.
at all, right? We just
Yeah.
didn't have the capacity to
Yeah.
understand that stuff in our season, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and my mom, like, I know my mom's not, I believe my dad's the one that's dyslexic, like, based on, like, interactions with him. So I definitely, like, inherited, like, a lot of stuff from him. So I think for her, like, she was just not able to, like, comprehend, like, what I wasn't able to articulate,
Oh,
like, what I was
absolutely
experiencing.
not. Like, you're looking at something and seeing a Japanese, right? But you're thinking that you're looking at what we're looking at. We're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Ashley, you play too much. Stop playing. Just read the book. Like, you know
And
what?
then tack ADHD on top of it, and it's just, like, a whole bunch of, like,
Right.
foolishness.
And it's like, girl, stop trying to watch TV. Stop trying to drink the juice. You just not paying attention.
Yeah.
Yes. I see these children that are hyper and they're like, oh, well, he just doesn't stay still long enough to learn anything. And it's like, okay, so maybe we should have playtime before we do reading so that he's a little tired. Like let's play out in the sun or go swimming, something that is exhausting and figure this out. Like,
Or Rondi mentioned the testing, right? So like for my son, because of my difficulties that Ashley is so like just seamlessly articulating, um, my son had recognized stuff with Dougie, right? And so recognizing that stuff and even the process of getting him tested at Kennedy Krieger to see exactly what it is so we can help him learn to the best of our ability. Um, it's first of all, it took like 2 years waiting list for 1 day of testing, and now I can schedule back out to next January if I want another test.
right.
So first of all, there's that. There's limited resources, and then or accessibility is limited, and then two was the whole process is traumatic, right? Because like, forgive my language, but this is what we grew up with, right? So like, you have my son was raised to believe he was on autistic spectrum, and he is not, but his mother did that to get a disability check and get some other benefits. And so you got a young man who was told his whole life till he's 14 years old that he is basically retarded, and that's why I say forgive my language, but treating him like he's retarded and he's not. And when I get custody of him and he comes to Baltimore, and I'm like, no shame on his mother, but she just didn't have the capacity to help him or recognize or work with him, because he got here and I'm like, this dude is smart, and he is he's just so used to being told he's a certain way. And so that's traumatic. And then as we process that trauma, getting him to go get tested takes him back to that, right? He revisits that, so now he's feeling like he's not smart or something's wrong with him. Nothing's wrong with you, bro. We just need to figure out how we can access a process that's best for you, because he's like
Yeah.
super smart,
And
and,
I will say, like, when it comes to autism too, like, I have family members that are autistic and friends,
and that was our struggle, was that he wasn't, but he was being told that, and so it was like an
but even
excuse.
still, like, there's a stigma with that, and they are
Right.
smart. Like, in the tech industry, like, in the industry that
Sure.
I'm in, there are so many folks that are on the spectrum and brilliant,
Right.
so, like, yeah, I just wanted to plug that
No,
real.
thank you. Yeah, thank you. Because I like, I like I said, I'm from an older generation, and so like, yes, I need to remember those things and hear those things, because I have to be intentional about that, and I'm just being honest. Like, I'm always honest to a fault, but yeah, I need to be intentional about how I think about those things and everything as well. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to Ash, and to your point, my one of my cousins is autistic, and as he's getting older, like we noticed that his temperament is changing. Like he's first of all, he's getting taller and much stronger. So we're like, uh-oh, how are we gonna manage this? Like, okay. But as we like try to engage and keep things regimented, because we understand like what he likes and what his triggers are. And I think that just having that empathetic understanding that this is how we're going to have to interact, and respecting those boundaries and knowing that these boundaries may seem ridiculous to you, or you
Hmm.
may not understand why they exist, but they do. And so
And
respect
they're
them when you
frustrated. They can be frustrating to people that don't understand.
Yeah.
right.
Absolutely.
and that's
And it's also like neurodivergents also aren't all the same. Like I think that's
right.
one that we like I've been trying to like have more conversations with folks to learn like their perspectives too, because like I know on the Venn diagram of like autism and ADHD there's like some overlap, but also in the things where we differ, I can see how we get on each other's nerves.
Yeah, like polar opposites, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But I have a question while we're on it. So, like, when I was the one or two times I was trying to go to college. I went to college, took college classes and stuff for a teacher's education degree, and I spent all my intern time at Ridge Ruxton, which is a school for people who are severely physically or mentally different. I don't know the right language, but it's for severe cases of people. And so that was like one of the greatest experiences I ever had. Like I love Ridge Ruxton. My question is, does Baltimore City students have access to that school, or do we have a space where their needs are getting met in a similar way? If you're familiar with Ridge Ruxton,
So I'm not familiar with that, but what I will say is that there is another candidate that's running for school board who is like an expert on disproportionality.
okay.
And what we do have in Baltimore City, which isn't being talked about a lot, is that some of the schools that aren't the ones that are always being highlighted do have a disproportionate amount of folks with IEPs
Hmm.
and 504s or yeah, whichever. I don't know if they're interchangeable,
They're
but
two
yeah,
different ones. Yeah.
yeah. So when you're talking about people that are neurodivergent or have like different abilities, why are they all being pushed into like certain schools? To it's almost making it look as if like they're not welcome in other schools because they don't want to pull down their numbers, and I have a huge problem with that because like I said, even the school choice process, like I was in a school board meeting, and I had asked them, I was like, well, what if the list that a student is compiling is a need and not a want? And literally the person from like the school system was like, what does that mean? And I was like,
What?
you yeah, yeah. And I was like,
Wow.
not everything that a child or family is listing on these lists is necessarily a want. So
But
when you
that's the
give them
assumption. That's the assumption.
yeah, so when you don't give them access to something, you may change their entire trajectory in life. You know? So
Which
if
is
they
that
were
they're sitting
listing
in the office looking at it, going, "Oh, they don't need to go there."
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Or they don't meet the qualifications or they don't stack up against this student
Again,
and
and again, so like to your point, it's going back to data, where data is driving policy and not the name
without
of the student
nuance.
you're helping, right? Like go into a school and meet one class of students, right? Before you just move on the numbers. Go meet them, ask them their names,
Right,
like
because it's about the
spend
numbers,
time in the
not
school.
meeting the kids
Oh
where
my
they
goodness.
are and being equitable about their education so that everybody gets the same education after they've matriculated through this piss ass
Well,
system.
so
Like,
let's
it's
yeah, I was
so
gonna say
stupid.
let's address that real quick. Let's back up a little bit because we still have about
Well,
10 minutes before
one
Roberta
more
comes
thing
in.
to
Go
that
ahead.
point. Like what you're suggesting, like them going to schools, I do understand that being on a school board is a privileged position. Like a lot of people with great credentials and stuff like that are on those school boards across the country. But also when they go to schools to like shadow schools, they go in there with an air.
Oh, it's a dog and pony show. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So they don't get to see a lot of the
yeah.
stuff I've been able to see. So I challenge them to go there and be a literal fly on the wall without the pomp and circumstance, without ribbon cuttings,
Oh yeah.
and sit there and not introduce yourself and just listen. Like
Mhm.
be vulnerable and give people space to tell you you're messing up.
Right, right.
Look, that's yeah, and that's part. I don't even want to go into what I was going to comment on because that's huge, right? Like just go incognito, go see what's going on and see what your people are doing, or look at how your decisions are rolling out compared to what numbers they gave you. Because I've been on these school meetings with, I do the meetings for the Pi Portal and the community stuff, and I'm on the meetings with Sandalisa and all these other people, and they're like, and sometimes like, I don't know them personally, but I'm like, you've got to be lying, or I don't think you're that stupid because you're in a position of authority and you have to have some kind of brains to get there.
Hmm.
So either you're misinformed or you're lying about a lot
You
of
know
stuff.
what, though?
I don't
I really think that people like in some cases, people are intentionally blind, right? Like they're
I hope
intentionally
not.
blind. I don't see that. I don't know. I don't see color. I don't know what you're talking about. We're looking at the numbers, da 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 da. But some people, I really do believe, are like completely oblivious and ignorant to their privilege.
And the
So,
reason and the reason why what I see, like, because I'm a people watcher, like,
hmm
and what I see is that the structure that is in place, the hierarchical
yeah,
power structure that's in place, there is not place for the people that can tell people higher up the real problems, because then their
right,
jobs are on the line.
Sure,
right,
and there's a ton of gatekeepers to get
Yeah,
through for them to
yeah.
hear the truth. So yeah,
But also, it benefits them to control a bigger population. So the more people that are easier to control to this school, push to this school, give fewer resources. They're not going to complain because they're all working or taking public transportation. They don't have time to call us during business hours. Their
yeah,
lunch break isn't long enough to tune in and call us and complain about anything. So we don't have to worry about them. We're going to give the funds over here where
the
these
squeaky
people, because
wheels.
they're
Yeah,
the squeakiest wheel, they're going to complain the most. And that can't be the way that we continue to manage the
Mhm.
budget, because the same areas are going to continue to suffer. And this is where we're at now. And like you said, Ash, like the system, the way the system is aligned, like it perpetuates this type of behavior. So what can the school board do to fix it, or who can we
well,
support? What do we need to burn
Yeah,
down?
I'm saying
first of all,
we got 10 minutes. So
yeah,
how do we support you? How do we get you on the board? What does it take? What do you need from us?
honestly, like the biggest thing right now is like fundraising. Any type of donate, anybody that's got $20. Like I have almost 200
What's the Cash
individual
App?
donors,
We'll put
which I
that.
am very proud of. Huh?
What's the Cash App?
Oh no, it's www.ashleyesposito.com.
All right.
Yeah, and so the donations, because what I'm doing is I'm buying literature so I can do all this door knocking.
That look right?
Um, yes,
All right,
perfect.
y'all. I'm gonna put it in the comments. You guys visit, donate. We need.
Because literature is like $1,000 a
It's
batch, and
expensive. Yeah.
the cost of paper has gone up. So I am
Yeah, so folks, if you're listening and you know of a printing place that can sponsor Ashley, make the connection. Visit
Your
the
local
website.
well,
your local work
I
center.
have a printing place that has like like they're ready to go. I just have to, yeah, because
Pay
they
them.
print 10,000 pieces for that amount, and it's like a union place, so which is
So
great. Yeah.
hit up the website, y'all. Hit up you'll see
Yes,
it.
yes. Any like I think like our donations range from like all different levels. Yeah, no amount is too, because it all adds up. So really, like, I would be so proud to like hit that 200 mark, 200 individual donors, because those are also people that are like my circle of accountability. But even people that can't donate are, any person that I meet throughout this process are people that I want to stay in contact with when I'm on the school board, because I want to reach into communities easily so that I can get their feedback before I cast a vote. Not of course, like, they're trusting me to cast votes and everything, but if it's something that I feel like I need to give up my seat for the community's voice to be there, I'm absolutely going to do that every time, and people in my community can attest to that. There's times where I have been able to put something on letterhead and just do a thing independently or with a small group of people, but
Right.
that's not how we've operated, and we've proven that that type of community engagement works. So
Right.
yeah. And also, I'm very supportive of the candidate that I mentioned before, Salima Jasani, because she really balances out what I'm talking about with like the the learning differences. She's actually an expert in that, and she's actually somebody that helps other school boards across the country get their crap together. So
Oh,
she is like highly qualified. She's my expertise, and I am her lived experience
yeah.
community person. So
No,
together, I
that's
think,
look, that's huge finding someone you can synergize with because when you guys show up and you stand in the gap for each other, you are exponentially more effective.
yep.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
we
huge to
both
be able to connect.
and we both had applied for the appointment process previously but weren't selected, so like that's actually kind of what pushed both of us to run.
To
um,
run. Yeah, like these jerks. Let me show you what's really going on. Okay. Let me
I
show
was
you.
look. I'm gonna tell you. I started filling out the application, but my kids don't go to city schools. I homeschool them because I want them to you know, I need to know that they're learning.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that yeah, I didn't tell you, Quita, but I was like, our kids need someone like us, and I'm so satisfied after hearing you talk and hearing your, the language you used to articulate and just hearing your story, like someone so close to my spirit, um, taking that role. Like you got it. You already got it, right? Like, because that role needs someone like us, and you got it.
Yeah, and
You just
and
have to.
regardless of the outcome of the election, I'm gonna be around. Like,
Yes,
I'm
man. That's
going
right. Let them know. Let them know.
Right.
Let them know.
Right. Because
So what?
again, like I said, I met you in the community and then we continued to bump into each other like
Yeah.
after that. That's how it always happens. I'm sure we were in the same room before.
Hmm.
But, at the tool bank, Noah was like, you two need to know each
So
other. And she was talking about your micro shelter. So I'm like, okay, this
so
is my
Ashley,
kind of
this
person.
weekend we need you. We need you at the historic Pennsylvania Avenue
I
Parade.
was
We need
already
you to
I
set
was
up a
already
table.
writing down all the info. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would.
yeah. So I'm gonna leave it up. So yeah, 12 p.m. to 5. We're gonna start at Penn North, march down the avenue, finish at Robert C. So just bring whatever information, pick a corner, walk the avenue, whatever you got to do. We're gonna have a crowd, so take advantage of that community equity and start building some relationships over
Yeah,
there.
and I actually have 80, wait, no, over 90 volunteers that signed up for the
Wow.
campaign.
That's
So like that
dope.
would be
Show up
so
because it's
dope
it's
to
it's
like,
fun. It's at a parade, and you're still volunteering and putting in some work, right?
yeah, yeah. No, I'm definitely gonna show, and I'm gonna
Awesome.
bring my son too. Like my son's part of the reason why we bought our house here, because like the community school is like a block up. So,
Oh,
like, we bought it before he was born, but we like our vision of like parenting and stuff started way before we even had him. So,
that's
yeah.
that's beautiful when that can be the way that it works, right?
Got it.
When
Yeah.
you can
No, it's good
plan
to
it
have
out a
order.
little bit better, it feels like you're in control. It only feels like you're in control, but
Oh,
it
our
feels
yeah, our path to get him though was definitely tough. Like, yeah, we have
you had to plan.
we have a genetic condition, so that's a whole nother story for another.
No,
I
that
feel
is, and I
like there's
Yeah.
look.
so many different things that we can talk about. Like, first of all, like genetically and ancestral history and
Oh
Why?
yeah.
healing.
Why
Um,
doesn't she have a show? Why don't just Ashley just get your own show and start having these conversations? Because I would love to listen to you talk more than
Oh,
just on our show.
that would be funny. And see, I know so many people that I think are so like quirky and cool, like
Bring
across
them
like,
on the show, interview them. Yeah, just like yeah. So you're our
yeah.
next
And
candidate.
then
Look,
the lady that you just mentioned, I want her to come back and like, well, what is she doing with other school boards? Like, what are some of the
oh,
tidbits that she
would
can? Yeah.
yeah,
look, we got
I will
2 minutes,
tell her.
y'all.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Ashley, wow, like we need to have more conversation. I've just enjoyed listening to you, and I'm encouraged and inspired. Where you gonna be this week? Anywhere in the community?
I am going to be going to, let me see my calendar. I know I have like some community meetings to go to. We're probably going to be door knocking. I'm going to be door knocking on my lunch break. So yeah, it's going to be absolutely insane until election day. And that's another thing too. Election day is July 19th.
July 19th.
Okay.
All right.
Early voting starts July 7th, the day after my birthday. And then you can request a mail in ballot until July 12th. And you have to request it. They're not automatically going to send everybody a mail in
Okay.
ballot.
Okay.
Sounds good. Quita, last words.
No last words. We're about to get cut off. See you at the lake. Love you. Bye. Mean
Thank you.
it.
Thank you. Love you guys.
We're out.